Ahoy! Today we're talking about changes to HiRez ban policy. So lately there has been a lot of conversation about ban policy in SMITE and if it's effective enough or if it goes too far and whatever. And as a result of that, HiRez has now had their own internal discussions and have decided to change various rules. These do not apply for all bans though, so we have to get into that and break that down a little bit more. The first big change here are new game suspension tiers. Again, these don't affect all bans, we'll get to that. Fortunately, I made a video on this before and that's how I was able to actually find the old suspension tiers as well, because they already removed them from their website. So previously, the steps were as follows. First offense gets you a 3-day suspension. Second offense gets you a 7-day suspension. Third offense gets you a 14-day suspension. Fourth offense gets you a 30-day or 1-month suspension. And the fifth offense gets you a permanent game ban. As you can probably tell, this was a very slow and very careful ban system. You could get away with getting reported quite a lot of times because between getting reported and actually having your account review, it can take quite a long time depending on how many other reports are in queue at that point. And then if all your reportable offenses only match the categories that this applies to, you'd still only get a 3-day suspension. So say you get 40 reports for leaving matches, you might get a suspension after that. You'd still be able to get another 3 bans before you would actually end up getting permabanned on the next ban after that. So that has been changed, and now the first offense will give you a 7-day suspension, the second offense will give you a 14-day suspension, and the third offense will give you a permanent game ban. Now before we get to the second change, it's important to understand what these ban changes actually apply to. HiRez explains it as follows. We track and manage various in-game offenses in our games to try and maintain a fun, friendly in-game community. We apply suspensions for any of the following offenses: leaving, harassment of other players, harassment of live streamers, intentional feeding, and chat spam. While chat spam is mentioned here, I don't think this is necessarily about writing fast or typing fast to your teammates, but rather if you're using a macro to clog up the chat constantly so no one can read anything else going on or see any VGS commands in their text form and everything. So these bans mainly apply to people who intentionally throw games or look to harass others. But there are other offenses with more severe punishments. Any of the following offenses results in an immediate permanent ban: hacking, fraudulent purchases, impersonating a HiRez employee, account sharing, real-life threats, or hate speech evasion. While I'm not 100% sure about this, I think hate speech evasion means hate speech detection evasion. So if you were to say anything that HiRez labels as hate speech, but you try to, for example, hide it by replacing some of the letters with numbers or with other signs, so it still is readable as what the person was trying to say, but the detection system wouldn't pick up on it. I think that would still get you a permaban, and that's why I specifically mentioned. This is interesting insofar that the punishment for hate speech evasion is actually higher than the punishment for hate speech that we get to in a second, which I'm assuming is because if you're specifically trying to avoid getting banned for hate speech, then you're already aware of the consequences. You already know that that's something that HiRez considers punishable, so there's no reason in trying to teach you a lesson because you're just trying to get around it. That's my guess at least, why it is more severe in terms of punishment. Account sharing is explained a little bit further. Account sharing will result in a permanent ban on the account that was shared, as well as a normal suspension as described above for the main accounts of any players that used the shared account. So this seems to specifically be about shared accounts that were made for the purpose of sharing and are not the main accounts of players. And then there's the third type of suspension or ban, which I think includes a few words that I can't actually say on YouTube anymore, speaking of suspensions. So this is basically more severe degrees of harassment. I will link the article down below if you want to know what exactly is in that particular one. But it's basically harassment against groups of people or specific ethnicities, as well as certain things that are physical harm related, which I probably can't say right here. Keep in mind that if you were suspended for one of those, then on the next offense you would get a permanent ban. But from my understanding, that would only apply if the second offense is of the same level of severity. If after that you just start leaving games all the time, I think you'd still go back into the system of now 3-step banning. Another factor that comes into play is that you can also get banned for things outside of the game. If a player is interacting with or on official social media accounts like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and so on, with language that would warrant an account warning or some higher punishment if it was used in-game, and there's a clear path to associate the social media account with the player's in-game account, we will take action against that player's account as outlined in a suspension or ban policy. So under this policy, technically, a streamer could, for example, get banned for harassing players in-game or insulting players that are in their game on their own stream, or somebody could get banned for harassing others on the SMITE Discord. These are things that I haven't really seen enforced so far, but it is worth pointing out that technically HiRez has given themselves the option to do that. They also state suspensions or bans may be applied for specific violations of the EULA or terms of service. And with the vagueness that usually is in those types of documents, it basically means that they reserve the right to ban you for whatever they want. Not likely that they're going to do it, but technically possible. So now that we've gone through the different types of bans and how they are enforced right now, we also have to get to the second change, which makes another difference. There is the ban evasion enforcement. If a player has been suspended or banned on an account, any subsequent accounts used during the duration of the suspension or ban by the player found by a support staff could be permanently banned. In other words, if you get banned and you use a Smurf to keep playing, then HiRez reserves the right to ban that Smurf account permanently. This is very interesting because I don't know how HiRez can enforce this. I don't know if they would be tracking by IP, which as far as I know might be unreliable in certain circumstances, or if they have a mix of hardware and IP tracking somehow that allows them to figure out who is a player's Smurf. I'm guessing they somehow have the tools to figure it out. Maybe the location comes into play or something as well. Not quite sure how it'll work, but they wouldn't really put it in the policy if they didn't have any way to enforce it. Now, why do these changes happen? Basically, there are quite a few players in SMITE that will relatively regularly troll or harass others and just take the hit for the ban voluntarily, essentially, or for the suspension, because they are using multiple accounts anyways. And whenever one of their accounts gets suspended, they just switch over to a Smurf account and they don't really worry about it, and then once their main is unbanned, they switch back to that one. Or they don't even have a main and just switch between accounts anyways. Making new accounts is free, and especially if you ever got your first account completely banned, you might not even care much about things like skins or anything else as well. Sure, you might have to unlock some guards without the guard pack, but if you're playing a lot, that is not really that much of a problem either, so yeah, it's just an easy way to get around it. And this, in combination with HiRez's relatively slow ban system, has been becoming more and more of a problem, and now they've decided to take steps against that. Now, I know that ban policies are always a controversial topic, and I know there will be some comments down below telling me how people shouldn't be snowflakes or how they got unjustly banned. And I'm sure there are some people that got unjustly banned, but looking at the history of a lot of players that I've been seeing in my games, knowing how they've behaved over long periods of time, I don't think HiRez's current ban system is particularly harsh. I think unless you get caught over a bug or misunderstanding or some third-party software that weirdly interacted with SMITE or something, and you actually just get suspended for harassment multiple times, you have to make a pretty significant effort at being rude to other people in order to get banned in SMITE. And doing that 5 times in order to get a permaban, that honestly sounds like effort to me. Again, niche cases exist. There are also those with bad internet connections that get reports for leaving that way, or people that get reports for feeding when they're just not that good at the game. But at the end of the day, the reviews for significant bans in SMITE are manual, so getting banned for false reporting is very, very unlikely. As such, I think these are good changes to the ban policy that will make the experience better for the vast majority of players, and it's good that they're closing these loopholes, like for example smurfing, in order to effectively enforce the ban policy in every situation. Now I have to say that in this video, if you have a problem with a ban that you received, please don't go to me with that. That is what happened the last time I talked about bans, and I cannot help you. If you need help with that, you should first contact HiRez support, and if that doesn't work, then maybe contact the Olympians. They are the ones who can actually reach people that have any say in this. I don't. If you want to see more SMITE updates and info videos in the future, then click like and subscribe, or I will go to my garage, hide in the corner, stare at my home gym and contemplate if it's harder. Thanks to my patrons for making this video possible. That includes That Nick Walker, Dwayne Brennan, Lanta25 Green, Zelaria, Zed the Undead, Nevitz Jr., Rawas, Angel, and Z Ferroli, as well as everyone else you see here.